Hello again. Today, we're delving into Tokyo Xtreme Racer Drift 2. It's the third entry in the Tokyo Xtreme Racer Drift series. Join us as we set our sights on becoming the most feared downhill racer, cruising the streets in the mountains of Japan. Obviously, first thing we're going to need, car. And for that, we're heading over to the dealership. My first instinct was to go down the four-wheel drive path, but being a downhill racer, it seemed more appropriate to take a mid-engine or a rear-wheel drive, like the Trueno here. However, I eventually came to the conclusion that my best bet was this little MX-5. But before I fully committed, I thought I'd check out the used car dealership. And that is when I saw it. How could anyone resist a Honda City? I'm taking it because a little known fact, the original car for Initial D was going to be one of these, but it was decided that it would make any race too trivial, so they downgraded to an 86 instead. Besides, this car doesn't belong in a TV show, because this Honda City is mine. Okay, quick breakdown here. The game is separated into two parts, daytime and not daytime. The daytime is useful for shopping, competing in official events, and gaining sponsorships, where the nighttime is all about finding rivals to race up and down the mountains. And that is where we're going to begin our journey, at nighttime in the car parks of Hakone, where there are quite a few cars up for a race, and we make short work of the majority of them, until just the high gambler is remaining. Okay, Honda City, this is going to be your first real challenge of the game. If you win, we earn 40,000 credits, but if you lose, then we're down that amount. So let's see what you're capable of, while in stock form. Okay, here we go. And off the line, the city is instantly overtaken, and our opponent speeds off. First impressions? It's not looking good, but once the corners come around, the city slowly claws back that distance, until it's right on the tail of our opponent, just looking for a gap to make itself available. And in between hairpins, it manages to pull alongside, overshooting the next corner, but still manages to finish with a higher exit speed, taking the lead, and after that, the opponent is dust, as the city speeds off to victory. Ka-cha! Back to daytime, so we can head over to the store and do some shopping for our city. Some better brakes, an LSD, and some weight reduction. Also, we'll get some racing tyres to improve that traction. Ha! Turns out I can only afford half a set. Well, we'll stick them on the front. That'll do. With that, it's time to return to the night. And as it turns out, a lot of the cars we beat yesterday have turned up once again. So let's clear out the car park a bit. Right, and with that, we've only got the orange two-man team remaining. But we can't just go and challenge the leader. Before we can race him, we have to defeat his underlings. So let's get to that. Okay, first race, and I think we're going up against a Nissan Micra? You know what, to be on the safe side, I'm just going to refer to it as a Jag. But regardless of what it is, it doesn't stand a chance, because all the new upgrades that we've piled onto this car make it far superior to our opponent as we take off into the distance. The only thing that remotely catches us off guard is the end of the race, where it turns out roadworks are a thing, as our car hits dirt just before we complete the race. Now, it's time for the finale, going up against the team leader. But yet again, the city flies off into the lead. In fact, this race turns out to be a lot easier than the previous one, making me think that that team needs a change in leadership. And not only do we claim victory, but we end up claiming the greatest prize of all, friendship. With the conclusion of that race, we have completely emptied out the car park tonight. So, it's time to move back to the day and earn a bit of extra money, doing some drifting gymkhana. Oh, City, I'm so sorry. This is not painting you in a flattering light. Even a storm can't hide how bad this is looking. Okay, I can't help but admit that this humiliation is partly my fault. I tell you what, let's go buy you a nice new carbon fiber hood as an apology. Okay? There we go, buddy. It's looking good. We'll take it. And now it's time to go back to the night. Only this time, we're heading to... Entering the car park, we can see that it's brimming with potential opponents. One of them was so eager to race, they even showed up in a utility truck. Now you gotta respect that, even if it was just the absolute worst idea. And after defeating him, we work our way through the rest of the opponents, until just the trickster remains. Looking over his car's performance, we come to the conclusion that it's much better than our own. But if that previous guy had the courage to race us in a utility truck, how can we possibly say no to this battle? So let's give it a go. Now, I really would have thought that in an uphill battle, the City would be at a huge disadvantage. But it holds its own. And like always, once the corners come around, the lightweight nature of the car allows it to pull ahead, and every corner after that, it further increases its lead. Until it's eventually so far ahead that the opponent gives in, allowing the City to claim yet another victory. As days pass in the game, the City continues to win races, gaining new sponsorships to earn money, conversing with other drivers during the nights, and continuing to do just terrible drifts. But eventually, we do catch the attention of the fastest racer at Hakone. If we're doing this, then let's get a nice new paint job to mark the event. With that, the night has come around again, and the stage is set between our Honda City and our opponent's FTO. But honestly, he should have known better than bringing a front-wheel drive to a downhill race. Well, of course, unless it's a Honda City. Because, as you can see, not only do we take the lead, but we absolutely decimate the opponent, gaining such an incredible lead that, he gives in. With that, the Honda City has cleared its first mountain pass. And in doing so, we've unlocked some new tracks, 3 of them to be exact, which works out great because I'm looking for a change of scenery. Another fun feature of the game is the ability for the other mountain racers to grant you a nickname based on your performance. And after seeing my demonstration, they've decided to give me one. Wow, that's just mean. Honestly, all that nickname succeeded in doing was setting off the bloodlust in the Honda City. So it quickly approached the other mountain passes and rose through the ranks until eventually it was able to challenge the leader of each mountain pass. And even though the city had very minimal upgrades, it easily carved through each leader that it came across. And in doing so, would receive new unlockable parts that at some point we'll have to add to the car. For now though, clearly, this city doesn't need them. Because with the destruction of these 3 new mountain pass leaders, that's 4 mountain passes down. And the city, still going strong. At this point, we've set our sights on a very tough opponent. So to prepare the city for it, we're heading over to the tuning shop, adding some reinforcement to the car and improving the transmission. While we're here in fact, let's do everything. So we'll upgrade some engine components, making sure they're all compatible for that critical engine boost. And we'll add a new computer, so we can drag a bit more power out of this thing. And you know what? I think that'll do it. Let's head over to the challenge. And here he is, wagering a stage 4 turbo that we can take off his hands if we win this race. The only question is, of course, is the city up to the challenge? The answer may not surprise you. Now this track has a very technical start before it heads into more high-speed corners later on, so I figured getting an early lead was the best bet. The trouble is, however, the opponent manages to have just as much grip around the corners as we do. But what comes as even more of a surprise is once the high speed section comes around, the city still manages to hold its own, if only just hanging on by the skin of its teeth. And entering the final few technical corners, our opponent gets a little bit desperate, but we just manage to keep the lead and hold them off for a few more corners, until eventually we come along to the finish line and claim ourselves a Stage 4 Turbo. With the race complete, it's time to head back to the shop and install that Stage 4 Turbo, along with buying some accommodating parts, giving the city quite a nice power boost. And if we add more power, then it only makes sense that we upgrade the brakes to go alongside it, along with an LSD to try and give us a bit more traction. And sure, why not? Let's take off a bit more weight too. Now, on our journey, we have also unlocked 2 new mountain passes, which unfortunately are in snowy terrain and therefore suited to 4-wheel drives. But what we also got was a brand new nickname from the mountain racers. Oh, come on! If we're heading into a more professional rally style event, then obviously we need to look the part. So come on city, it's time to do a bit of dress up, adding some nice new wheels and a whole bunch of body modifications to make you look like a professional rally car. The only thing we are going to skip is the eyeliner and GT wing, because you don't need those. But we will give you some nice new lights. So with that, let's see if these new tracks are as much a cakewalk as the other ones we've completed. And it looks like our opponent is an RX-7, and a powerful one at that, because as soon as the race begins, he is off into the distance, leaving us in his dust. Thankfully, as soon as some corners come around, we realise that's his weakness. But it's very hard to capitalise on it, when as soon as the corner ends, and he's off again. Eventually, a couple of corners come together, so we trick him into going out wide, before our nimble Honda City ducks back into the inside, and through the gap that has opened up, taking the lead. But now we've got to figure out how we hold this incredibly fast machine off for the rest of a race. Spoiler, it's a ton of blocking. The RX-7 doesn't like that at all, because as soon as some roadworks come around, he flat out tries to murder us. He shouldn't have done that. That's just set off the bloodlust of the city, and only moments later, it takes the inside line and reclaims first place, once again, resuming the blocking, as that RX-7 frantically tries to find any gap it can, but to no avail. Somehow, this tiny Honda City had managed to make itself the entire width of the road, holding off our opponent and earning us a brand new nickname. Hey, I was blocking, not hitting. But this does bring up an interesting point. If we're going to survive any longer, then we need more power. And there was someone betting a Stage 5 Turbo at the other snow track. Luckily, this track is a lot more technical, as long as we can survive the start straight. As soon as the race begins, the Audi takes off like he owes child support to our Honda City. But he doesn't manage to get far enough ahead by the time the corners come around. And bit by bit, our Honda City claws back that distance until it's right on the tail of that Audi, following it through each corner, just looking for any gap it can find to make a move and take first place away. Eventually, our opponent leaves a gap open, if only for a second. But that's all we needed to speed round on the outside and take that lead away from the Audi. Now returning to our favourite tactic of blocking, as that Audi is furiously looking for a chance to get back in front. But somehow, the city manages to make itself as wide as the road, foiling any attempt that is made and holding on to the lead until our opponent eventually makes a mistake. That allows us to round the final corner and take a very comfortable victory. That Stage 5 Turbo is ours! Whew. With that Stage 5 Turbo installed, along with various other parts, the city is turning into quite the little race car. My only worry is, there's not too much more we can do to it, and if the opponents keep getting tougher, then we're gonna have a problem. And just as I think that, 2 new crews arrive on the scene, the 13 Devils and the Kingdom 12. Now the 13 Devils are a highway team who have come to conquer the mountains. Where the Kingdom 12? I'm a little less sure of, as their motives seem a bit more hidden. I guess the best way to figure out what's going on is to race them. Whew, This one looks tough. With the race underway, the Honda City gets off to its usual technique of being slow. But of course, as soon as the track's anything but straight, we begin to claw back that distance. And it turns out our opponent is even worse off in the corners than that RX-7 from earlier. So because of that, we have no problem closing the gap and eventually finding an opening where we can shoot past and into first. Honestly, I expected more from this team. Wait, something doesn't seem right here. No. So this is why I had no trouble getting into first. I'm on racing slick tyres. Literally the worst type of tyre to have on gravel roads. All I can do now is hope I don't fall too far behind before the tarmac returns and we can actually get some traction. Come on, racing slicks, you got your work cut out for you. We're already more than halfway through this race. But with our superior turning, eventually we do manage to catch up to the opponent. And after a poor corner by him, we spot our opening. And just in time, we've got first place back. Oh no, a second set of roadworks? Okay, the plan is just to hog the racing line. We cannot let him get back past. There's not enough track left. Unfortunately for us, using the outside line, he does manage to pull alongside and proceeds to use the next corner to smush us into the wall, taking that first place away from us. By the time the tarmac returns, well, he's a long way in front. City, if you've got any tricks up your sleeve, now is the time. And after some absolutely frantic cornering, you should have known it from the beginning. You can't keep a Honda City down, as it quickly flies by and into first place, using its superior cornering to increase that lead all the way up to the finish line, where it crosses for a very relieving victory. With the Kingdom 12 down, next up is the 13 Devils, and with there being no roadworks during the day events, our racing slick tyres make incredibly short work of him, meaning our Honda City has the ability to stand up to these crews. In doing so, we're rewarded with a new nickname. What? But why? Maybe it's my nickname, but nobody new appears to be arriving on the mountain. After a bit of research, it turns out I need to win some official events, and those require other cars. Luckily through betting, I've acquired a few on this journey. So, here's 2 days' work, compressed into about 8 seconds. Eventually we get enough medals that the final leader of the snow tracks slinks out of the shadows, challenging us to a race. But with his far more powerful car, as soon as the race begins, he is off. And if he gets 164 yards ahead, we automatically forfeit. But just before that number can be reached, we hit the corners, and it starts dropping, until, as always, the Honda City has made its remarkable comeback, and it is right behind this WRX. So step 1, catch up to the opponent, complete. Now for step 2, find an opening and exploit it. And what do you know, here one is. But unfortunately, we're pushing so hard to complete it that we overshoot the corner, and the WRX, using us as a wall, retakes first place. But it's early days yet, so no need to panic. As you can clearly see, our opponent isn't going anywhere. We've just got to find another opening. And as soon as he takes a bad corner, the Honda City nimbly darts past and into first place. And with the WRX clearly being the slower of the two cars on this road, we casually cruise home, being awarded a brand new nickname. Now I don't want to see Essence of Boy or Annoying Hit. I'm starting to get the feeling that they might not like me. At this point of the game, we are down to the final track, and it's a flat out rally track. And we are struggling. We've managed to reach one of the final opponents in the game, and to a rally stage, they've brought a skyline. But if you think that means it's going to be an easy win, well, you're dead wrong, as the city struggles to keep up. And the moment we make a small mistake, the entire race is over. And I'm kind of prone to making mistakes. After failing to beat the skyline many a time, we decide on a radical strategy. Visiting the parts for our car, we notice that our reinforcement adds weight. By removing it, our car is lighter and more bendy. The second part of that, probably not great, but we decide to give it a go anyway. And so begins the most panic-inducing race of this entire journey. As the skyline vanishes off into the distance, the little Honda City does anything it can to keep within the 164-yard boundary, barely hanging in through the start section, as every time it makes ground on a corner, that progress is instantly ripped away by the straights that follow. A little bit further into the race, a more technical section appears, and the much lighter City manages to outbrake and outcorner that boaty skyline, finally closing the distance and giving me a sense that it might actually be possible to win this race. Of course, with that realization comes panic. A lot of panic. Which only became worse once we took the lead. Because as you can see, the Honda City had to work harder than it has ever done before for the rest of this race, with that skyline breathing down its neck. By some miracle, the Honda City holds off our opponent's advances, claiming victory. Way to go, City! At this point, we have reached the Kaido President of the Kingdom 12. And it is here that it all fell apart. As race after race, I was destroyed within the first minute. So to improve my chances, I tried everything. Unlocking what little remaining parts existed for the city, optimizing the gear ratios, fiddling around with the suspension, putting back on and taking off the reinforcements, but nothing would work. At best, all I could do was keep pace just within the 164-yard limit. As heartbreaking as it is, almost completing the entire 400 opponent roster. Sadly, City, this is as far as you go. On the bright side, after all your hard work, the mountain racers have given us one last nickname. Yeah, finally! Something decent. Thanks a lot for all your effort, City. You've worked really hard. I think you deserve a vacation. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like or even consider subscribing. And we'll see you next time. Bye!